what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Dipped in Tone. I'm Rhett.
I'm Zach.
And you met Adam Savage. Let's talk about it.
I met Adam Savage. So last Monday, found out that he was going to be at the Indiana Comic Con in Indianapolis. And I was like, oh no. So I immediately called my wife and said, hey, can we go to Indianapolis this weekend? And she said, we basically have to. So
yeah,
loaded up the fam, dropped the dog off at the dog daycare and went. And then on Saturday, we bought like a 1-day pass. I put on my Ghostbuster uniform. Morgan put on hers. Graham was not into it, so he wore normal clothes. And I made a beeline for the autograph booth, and I met him. I talked to him. I told him about sending him a positron collider. He said he's going to feature it in an upcoming video, which was like
so
crazy.
Sick.
But I thanked him for Tested and all that he does because of, like I said before, like, you know, it really got me through COVID, and, you know, it gave me something to watch while I was losing my mind. And he was so nice, and he gave me a fist bump, and he thanked me. And I got we couldn't take pictures there. I got a picture later, but the assistant to him at his little signature table captured a photo of me in complete jubilation.
Yeah.
Like smiling like an idiot. And he posted
a picture here. Yeah.
Oh, I got it right here. I got it right here. There it is.
Dude, look at that smile. I've never seen, I've known you for a good handful of years now. I've never seen you make that face before. I mean, that's peak happiness right there.
Smiling like a little kid. But he was super nice, and it was completely worth it. And then I got to go, he did like a Q&A, and I lucked out and got a front row seat and got to watch him do a Q&A with all these people. And he just talked about ADHD and creativity, and how, like, when things go wrong, he relies on this phrase of "this is what's happening right now," where it's just, you just have to accept it and deal with it. And he talked a lot about not knowing how to do a lot of things, but he knows how to start. And so if he knows how to take the first step, then he can probably figure out the next step, and then he'll probably figure out the next step. And he just talked a lot about that. And it was very powerful to someone who hopes that they are creative. And it was worth all the effort to go see him. So what was your last week like?
Well, okay, you are creative and you are a maker.
Well,
like,
I know
you know, that is important to acknowledge about yourself. Like, it's and I understand where that comes from, like the imposter syndrome thing, which I've seen Adam Savage talk about on Tested. And it's the ADHD thing. I would love to see, do you know if that Q&A is posted anywhere? Because I'd love to watch that if possible.
I saw some people recording it, so you might be able to find it.
Yeah, so. The ADHD thing is a very real thing for me because I've, struggled with it my whole life. And in watching Adam, on Tested, it's a very much so a takes one to know one kind of thing. Like watching his 1-day builds and the way he works is really encouraging for me, because I can look at him and very clearly say like, oh yeah, that guy is on some level got the ADHD. And it's encouraging to see someone who, has it, but is so brilliant and driven and successful. And because growing up with it, that was not the, let's say the mindset towards it. It was very much a disorder and something wrong and something needed to be fixed.
Yeah,
and
get in line.
Yeah, and which did not play well for me growing up. And so it's really encouraging to see someone like Adam Savage where I can relate and I can see, and like, there's a place for people like us, and there's a path to success and a path to like working in your passion and doing what you love. And that's, it's awesome. I'm a huge fan. So cool you got to meet him. That's badass. Things are good, man. We had a good week. The band Good Trouble, we launched our first single as a band.
That's great. I listened to it. Sounds great.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we recorded it in my half-finished basement. It's not a studio yet. It's still a basement, and I'm really stoked with how it came out. The single sounds great. We put out a live performance video of it on the band channel. There's now a band channel. If you look up Noah Guthrie and Good Trouble on YouTube, you can subscribe. We've got 4 new singles coming out over the coming months. And the plan is basically, we've transitioned to now being a band. It's a band
Right.
situation, whereas before it was Noah, and then we were the hired gun backing band. Now Good Trouble is a band. We're writing together, producing together. And rather than like making a record or doing stuff sort of the traditional music business way where you make an album and then you sit on it for 12 months while you do promotion and all this other kind of stuff, we said, to hell with all that. We're just going to do it ourselves. We're going to make something. We're going to get together, write something, record it, produce it, mix it all here in one go. And then we're just going to put it out a couple weeks later, kind of like a YouTube video would be, where it's like, okay, here's our idea. Let's make it and let's put it out. And then let's make something and put it out. Both a single version and a live performance video to go with it. So yeah, the response has been amazing. The song's called Rockstar. You can go stream it everywhere. Go watch it on YouTube. And yeah, it's the first thing we officially recorded in the studio.
That's awesome.
Studio needs a name, by the way, so we're working on that still. But
the Shell Hut.
Okay, great. That's
let's
put a pin in that, and we'll circle back. So yeah, that's what's been going on.
Right. So before we get into talking about our fantastic guest, first I want to thank our Patreons. So
yes.
Everybody who supports the channel, thank you so much. And if you want to join up with Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/I believe dipped in tone. There'll be a link below.
Yep.
But you can look at all our tiers. We have like a really entry-level tier that just gets you a few little benefits joining our Discord, some higher levels where you get access to things early, and then actually get discounts on merch and courses and even pedals on my website. So all the things. So go check out our Patreon.
Q&A episodes that go up generally every month.
Well, we're working on it.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're listen, a lot of irons in the fire over here at Shoyles Industries. Is that our official name? I think have we settled on Shoyles Industries? I kind of like it. It's like,
might as well. We haven't filed anything with the government, but we'll,
don't worry about the government.
What do they need to know?
This.
They don't.
Yeah.
Who are we?
Yeah, don't worry about us.
They got bigger problems. But yeah, check out our Patreon, and thanks to everybody who supports us. So
and also subscribe. We don't talk about it enough, but when you subscribe, it really does help the channel out. So click that red button, click the bell to be notified when we've got new episodes posting live, and we appreciate the support.
Oh, and I did look because I think last episode I said, is there still a bell? There is a bell.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't see it because I have notifications turned off for everything. Because if I had notifications for things, my phone would die in about an hour.
Just as a quick aside, as a YouTuber, I can tell you why do notifications matter. You should turn notifications on for channels that you really care about, because the initial response in the first hour of a video going live is really important to the overall lifespan of the video. And so when you have notifications turned on and you click on it in the first hour, it tells YouTube, hey, this video is really connecting with the audience. We're going to start pushing this video to more people. It really does matter. I know it's annoying. I know everyone says it all the time, but it does matter, and it does help the creator. So thank you.
Yeah. So do it, and we thank you. And then we got to thank do it. We got to thank our sponsor of the show. We got StewMac again. You can go to stewmac.com/dippedintone and get 10% off your order. And today we're going to talk about something that I'm paying attention to, because you know how normally in the fall, it's like, okay, hey, it's super dry. You got to take care of your stuff. Well, now I'm looking at my humidity hygrometer thing, and it's super wet. And so now is the time to get all your guitars out and tune them up. And StewMac has all the tools for setting up your instruments, maintaining them, cleaning them, doing all the things you need to do when the seasons change. And it's something you should do, like when the seasons change. You should always take care of your guitars.
Clean your fretboards, people. It's something that people, myself included, we overlook, but it gets pretty grody, especially after, a summer of playing outside, playing festival gigs and stuff. You're sweaty, you're grimy. Polish your frets, clean your fretboards. Your guitar will thank you. And it's specifically the polishing the fret thing is something that I skip over, because if I'm changing strings, I'm like, I'll just do it next time, whatever. But when you play a freshly polished fret, it makes the guitar feel like new again, revitalized, and it's great. And it looks great. You see those nice shiny frets shining back at you. So clean your fingerboards.
Oh yeah. I've always heard, now StewMac can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've always heard that like leaving dirt and grime on your board is actually really bad for your frets. Cause it can get down under stuff and clean your fingerboard. Nothing makes you look less professional than a dirty fingerboard, in my opinion.
Let me tell you something. You know, that's why originally the reason that Fender switched to rosewood boards, right, was because Leo didn't like the look of the maple, like the finish wearing off, and because it didn't look professional. Yeah. So look professional, clean your fingerboards. All right, maybe we should make a shirt that says "Clean your fingerboard," and it's got like a little tech deck, like skateboard or something on it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Intro our lovely guest.
All right. So today we've got Andy Powers, the CEO and chief guitar designer of Taylor Guitars, which is really, really cool. It's an amazing conversation, very, very illuminating. The man knows a thing or two about guitar, and he's going to educate everyone on some, but like we get into a pretty like molecular level of physics here, talking about acoustic pickups, which I did not anticipate we were going to get there. So
anytime you talk about moving electrons, I'm like, yeah, let's go.
yeah. I think you're going to enjoy it. So here we go. Andy, thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, it's my pleasure. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a big deal having you on the podcast. So thanks
Absolutely.
for taking the time.
I'm happy to get to do it.
Nice. So let's start off with a quick, who are you and what do you do for our listeners that may not be aware? What does Andy Powers do?
I am a guitar maker, guitar player, instrument player, I guess, and I design what we make here at Taylor Guitars, and then I wear a CEO and president hat as well.
And
so you're not that busy. Pretty
the
chill
day
schedule.
gets a little bit full.
Yeah,
the day gets a little bit full. I mean. There's a lot of fun things to put into a day between chasing kids around, going surfing, working on stuff. There's lots to do in a day.
That sounds awesome. Pretty great.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. That's an awful lot of fun. I mean, we get to build guitars. It's like, come on, it's fun and games.
You
music.
Build guitars inside, and because you're still in El Cajon, right?
Right. Yeah. San Diego
that
area.
Doesn't suck.
No, it's a great place to be. I mean, I grew up here, and I live, I think, 3 miles from the house I grew up in.
That's awesome.
I've had a good look around. Went, yeah, I really like where I live. This is great.
Yeah, I like where you live too, actually. So we may be out there in a couple of years. So
do it.
Take us through kind of like how did you get into guitar design, guitar building, and then where you are now, because that's a pretty interesting role that you have to be CEO and chief guitar designer of a pretty massive guitar company. So how did you get there?
Well, both my parents are kind of what I describe as hobbyist musicians, right? And so when I grew up, my dad's a carpenter by trade, and a good one. He's a good carpenter. And there was there was a lot of music around. It wasn't professional grade music. That wasn't a career that anybody had. That's not a job. That was just part of life. And so they're enthusiastic listeners, and a lot of their friends, a lot of the people that were around our house when I was young, they all liked playing music, whether it was 3 chords, maybe sometimes 4 chords, sometimes country Western songs, sometimes, the Laurel Canyon era songs, it was kind of that Southern California thing where everybody's passing guitars around, a mandolin, a dobro, whatever somebody has to play. So I kind of grew up in that environment. And my dad being a carpenter, I was around tools a lot. And so when I was a kid, well, that's what you do. You get some scraps of wood and you go, well, go make something. You want something, go make it. You want a skateboard, go make it, And one day my dad brought home a scrap of wood that was big enough to build a guitar with. And so I thought, yeah, I'll try. That sounds pretty good. And so that was my first attempt. It was literally like, I was a kid. I don't know. We never really quite figured it out. I think 7 or 8 years old, somewhere in there.
Whoa. Okay.
So I started pretty young, and it wasn't a guitar. I want to say that I built a guitar. It was not a guitar. It was a guitar-shaped object.
Right.
I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't know the first thing about it. I didn't know how to put one together. I didn't know what it should look like, really, other than we had a guitar in our house. So I kind of went, yeah, that's cool. Neat shape. It's made of wood. It's got a hole in the middle. Cool. I'll do something like that. I worked on the thing for weeks, and I had begged 6 mismatched tuning machines to put on it, and a used set of guitar strings. And I mean, this is like, it was so bad. I cut the points and the heads off nails and glued those in place for frets. It was awful, right?
Okay.
And so I got to put these strings on thinking, yeah, I've built myself a guitar. This is cool. And the thing just exploded. It was like it exploded into a pile of splinters, like there was a firecracker or something inside. Like, whoa, what? Probably burst into tears. And ran inside the house and went, okay, let me take a closer look. Pull the guitar down, look inside. Oh, there's all this stuff inside. Okay, these sticks all over. They probably make it stronger. I better do that next time. So I waited till I got another big piece of wood. Tried again. That one broke as well. It kind of started that way. But along the way, they started working. Not well, but they were working. And then I started fixing guitars because, you work on it long enough, you go, yeah, I see what's wrong with this one. I can fix that. I can put that back together. So by the time I was a teenager, I was building and selling guitars to people around town, family, friends. Then it turned into musicians and professional musicians and some collectors and some museums and things like that. But by the time I was a teenager, I was doing all the repairs for a lot of the local music shops because they didn't really have woodworking capabilities. And so they'd call our house and leave a message for me. And then my mom or dad would drive me around town to all the different music shops. I'd pick up all the broken guitars, put them in the station wagon, bring them back home, fix them in our garage. And then my mom or dad would drive me back around, drop them all off, collect the next batch, And so it turned into a thing that I love doing. And all the while I was always playing in bands and started playing on records with different people. And that was kind of all I ever really did was work with guitars, work with instruments and play them. And so I studied music in college. I had a scholarship and went, okay, I might as well make the most of it, do some stuff. There was a great university here in San Diego called UCSD, and they had some great musicians that I wanted to spend more time with. And it's a short walk from my favorite surf spot. So,
Made sense.
Yeah, it made a lot of sense that way. But even all of my, call it college era, I was mostly building guitars and selling them to classmates, my teachers, some of them who I had, night gigs with, playing in the same bands and that kind of thing. So it's sort of an interesting mix. And then I kind of figured I'd just do that forever.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was a wonderful existence. I mean, I was surfing a lot, spending a lot of time in the water and getting to play music. Tried touring just a tiny little bit and realized I hated it. I was not cut out for van life. I really liked being in my workshop every day. That was a thing. And around the time that I graduated college, I kind of had this almost like a panic moment. You realize, man, all of my peers, all my friends, they're all going and getting jobs. What the heck am I going to do?
Right.
And I realized oh my gosh, I can't quit even if I wanted to, because I've taken at the time I had, I think maybe a 2 or 3 year waiting list for new guitars. And so I realized oh man, I can't quit even if I wanted to, because I've taken all these people's money and I got to make good on all those promises. And, wait, all my bills are paid. I absolutely love working on guitars. Maybe I'll just pretend that this is like a job and I'll just keep doing some of that. That could work out, at least for now. That could work. And so I did that for a number of years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, it makes you feel a little like an idiot to not see it as you're going through it. It was almost always in hindsight. Mm-hmm. You're kind of like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And then you realize, maybe I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. That seems to be okay. I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, go ahead.
I was going to say that for me with the building pedals, there were so many times where I had the same moment. Like I had this fear of like, what's going to happen when I actually sat down and looked like, oh, I could survive off doing the thing I actually like doing. But for me, there was always like this voice in the back of my head saying, you're not a professional at this. You don't know how to run a business. You don't know how to pay taxes yet. You don't know how to do all these things. And it does make it kind of daunting, but it's awesome to hear that story from you because, it just people having the perseverance to actually like try something. It seems kind of rare, so that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm not sure I really had the courage to call it perseverance, but like in the first 10 years of being in business, you don't make any money. You're just learning the ropes, right? You're struggling. Well, I had the fortune that first 10 years happened when I was so young, they didn't matter. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I kind of chuckle. It's far enough in the rear view mirror now that I'm not embarrassed about it. I got in trouble with the IRS. I was 12 or 13 at the time. Okay. and so I was, working away in my mom and dad's garage, and I was rented a little space from them. Not that young. They weren't serious like that. They just made me, clean up real good.
Yeah.
And so I got this letter in the mail, and it was really stern and scary looking. And I ran in the house, showed it to my dad, and I go, okay, so what does this mean? And he read it over. He starts laughing. He goes, well, I'll tell you what it means. He goes, it means that you made too much money and somebody noticed.
Yeah.
And so I went out. I can still remember it. My mom drove me out to the county recorder's office, like the clerk, kind of official government building where you do all your business stuff. And it's waited in the long lines, I go to the guy at the counter and or person at the counter, and I give him this letter. I go, okay, so what should I do? He looks it over, he's looking over the counter at me. He's on that real high desk kind of thing where I could barely see over it, and calls a supervisor over. They talk for a while. They call another person over, ask the person next to him. After what feels like an eternity, he slides the letter back. He goes, I don't know what to tell you, kid. You got yourself a problem here. He goes, you're not old enough to work, but you got to pay your taxes, so you better figure something out.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I did. I figured out a little workaround to go, oh, well, I could file for a business name this way, and as long as I don't have any employees, I can, this form doesn't require your age on it, so I'll fill out that one, and kind of live between the cracks of society.
It's crazy though, because you kind of just stumbled into this career path, it seems. And I think we have a good portion of listeners on this show that are, want to get into the industry. They want to build, pedals, or they want to get into guitars, or, something like that. And I think it can be really daunting for a lot of people because there's not really, it's a really small industry still in the grand scheme of things. And it doesn't seem that there's like an established career path. It's not like I go to this college for 4 years and then I get this job for 10 years and then I move into this and move up. And so it's great to hear your story because it basically seems like it boils down to just do what you like, do it a lot, get good at it. And you might find a way to do it for a living and then become the CEO of a big guitar company.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot like a life in music. You ask any musician, you go, well, how did you end up here? And, I admire it once in a rare while, you'll hear about somebody who said, well, I set out to become a first call studio musician. And so I went at it this way. But you know what? I bet you the number of times I've heard that story could be counted on one hand. Maybe two, but that's rare. Usually what you find is, well, I fell in love with music and I started playing and I was playing with this band and then I got this gig and I happened to come across this, monitor engineer on this tour and it turned into that. And, you kind of fall your way into things and then realize, man, there's a spot right here where there's something. In my case, the way I came to Taylor was I was happily doing my work, and I kind of thought I'd work like Geppetto in a workshop with the leather apron and my big thick glasses until I was, a very, very old man. And then Bob and Kurt approached me. I'd always been playing, and I was playing with a friend of mine at the time. We were doing like a kind of a duo sort of thing, just, goofing off and having fun. And we ended up playing at Taylor NAMM presentation, like in a big booth. We used to do a big stage and that kind of thing. And so we came in, played a set of music, just with two guitars. My buddy was singing, and Bob Taylor and I got to talking. We kept talking, and we had met. I mean, San Diego's a pretty small place. We had met back when I was a teenager, and he at another show, and he saw something, an instrument that I'd built, and said, "Well, if you ever need a job, come look me up." I said, "Well, thanks, but no thanks. I'm not old enough to drive, and couldn't get there anyway, and kind of happy doing what I'm doing." And so our paths crossed again later. And then finally he called me in one day. He goes, "Hey man, look, we're a guitar company that's driven by a guitar maker. It's like, if we want to keep that way. So if you could take what you're good at doing and combine it with what we're good at doing, musicians will benefit from that. A whole bunch of people could benefit from that." And so that's kind of how this all came to be, is simply looking at what is good for a company's employees, what's good for a company's suppliers, what's good for musicians, what's good for people whose livelihoods depend on selling instruments. What's the best you can do with what you've got? That's kind of where this started. And the reason that we continue this is in life, you're trusted with a couple of things. You've got some level of ability to, build pedals or make amps or play music, write songs. You got some sort of thing. What can you do with it? Who can you serve with that? Mm. And so that's kind of how this all fell into place.
If you were going to, because like when you talk about the acoustic guitar world, Taylor is one of the names that immediately comes to mind. And for the people that may not have taken that step to try an instrument yet from Taylor, like how would you distill what it is that you guys do for musicians when it concerns your instruments?
I guess I'd say it this way. We want to we want to build something that's great to serve the needs of a musician. Right? And so that's got to sound great. It's an instrument that has to sound great. It has an instrument that has to play really good. It has to be repairable. It has to be dependable. It's got to work on a gig. It's got to work in your bedroom. It's got to work when you're playing with other musicians. It's got to serve the needs of a musician. And so I love manufacturing things. I've always loved making things. But if it's not getting used, then it probably wasn't a great thing to make to begin with. Mm-hmm. Right? So what we want to do is build an instrument that suits the needs of musicians and inspires them to play. That's what we're looking for. And you look around, look at not just how many genres of music there are there, but how many different flavors. I mean, every musician they're so unique. I mean, every artist is, whether they were musical or some other form of artist, but every artist, man, it's like they're a snapshot in that moment of their current inspiration, plus all of their experiences, plus their influences, plus their surroundings and their environment, like all these different things. It makes every musician so unbelievably unique. Mm-hmm. And because of that, they listen different ways, they play different things, they're offering different things, they're creating different things. One sound of guitar isn't going to fit that. One size fits all means one size fits all poorly. There's a lot of flavors. And so what I've always liked as a builder and a player is to have different flavors. And so you look at our lineup of guitars that we're building, man, there's a lot of different flavors. There's a lot of different sounds, a lot of different shapes, different feels in your hand, different woods and different aesthetic treatments and different, there's a wide variety of stuff here because musicians are unique.
Yeah. So being a guitar designer and builder, you've been with Taylor since 2011, right? Something like that.
Sounds about right.
So you've been involved in some pretty heavy, guitar designs and new shapes. And what's just interesting to me is, the acoustic world, I think, leans pretty heavily on tradition, right? Like there's a few shapes that are sort of the tried and true shapes, right? The dread or the slope shoulder dread or the OM or whatever. So how do you approach, coming into the acoustic guitar world and trying to design something new, a new shape, a new bracing system, and get it in the hands of people that are pretty traditionally minded with that kind of stuff?
Well, I think to begin with, I think I'd broaden it and say it's not just acoustic guitar players.
Well, true.
Yeah.
Right.
Very true.
I mean, look at the traditional electric guitar shapes: Strat, Tele, Les Paul. There's a lot of that. I think what we as musicians, where we land is we're comfortable with familiarity. Right. We like the look of things. We like the feel of things. We like the comfort of being comfortable. Right. And so you don't want to go too far from that in any one step. You want to understand, kind of internalize, well, this should look like a guitar. This should look like kind of the legacy of what where guitar has driven us. It's kind of like you take your own history in instruments and then you use that to guide where you're about to go next. Kind of the same path that a musician might take.
Yeah.
Look at your last record and go, well, I'm not going to completely depart from that because that is a little piece of who I am. And now I'm going to put some fresh inspiration to it. And so you take these things stepwise. You look at, let's look at some of Martin's earlier shapes. You go back into the 1800s, look at the development of how guitars became progressively larger. At that point, there was no differentiation between electric guitar, acoustic steel string, flat top guitar, arch top guitar, nylon string guitar, resonator guitar. There was just guitar. And they go, well, we want them to be a little louder. We're playing in bigger rooms, more volume, etc. So they started making that body bigger. And over a series of developments, it got a little bigger each time. Gibson did something a little different because they started with such a different thought about their initial instruments. I mean, the strings were pushing on the top, not really pulling in most cases. It was carved like kind of a violin-ish sort of thing. And so there were different ideas to begin with of what that guitar form should be. And you saw it become bigger and saw these shapes be developed, and they found favor with musicians. They served the needs of a musician at that time. It did something for a player. They went, oh, this works. This is great. Let's go with that. And so then, I liken it to being a two-way street between builders and musicians. A builder will make an instrument, players play it, evaluate it, give some feedback, and go, oh, this new instrument allows me to make these new sounds. Cool. And then a builder listens to that and goes, oh, well, if you're trying to do that, and that steers their next step.
Yeah.
And so you watch this kind of slow evolution. And for me as a designer now, that's what I participate in. I want to contribute what I can and what I know of guitar and music and contribute to the kind of the community pool of what players appreciate and what they can do with the instrument. And then after me, somebody else will take up the same torch and they'll put their contributions in. The guitar is still a pretty young instrument, historically speaking.
Yeah.
Especially steel string guitars. That's what, 100 years in common practice.
Right.
That's not long.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially electric guitars, even less than
Yeah.
that,
I mean, electric guitars even newer.
Right.
The short answer to your original question is you're participating in an ongoing evolution. Just like every time you pick up your instrument and you go to play a few songs, you're participating in this musical evolution of what's come before you and where you're about to go.
Nice.
So you touched on it a little bit, and on our show, multiple times, we've talked about Tonewood. And previously we had Mr. Paul Reed Smith on. We talked about the importance of Tonewood in a solid body electric instrument. And it's incurred quite a bit of debate in the comment section. I'm sure you're aware of such topics of conversation. But, everyone always tosses up, sure, it matters in acoustics, but it doesn't matter in electrics or solid body instruments. Undoubtedly, you're going to have this wealth of knowledge about Tonewoods. So could you touch on just a bit of that? Because I would love to hear that.
Yeah. A lot of times trying to describe sounds is a difficult thing.
Yes.
Because you're sort of using the wrong side of your head. You're using the language head and the language side of your mind, and sounds, we tend to think of them almost like they were in the land of the living. Mm-hmm. It's a different kind of thing. But I can tell you a couple of basic truths about a guitar. One of them is that, okay, let's say we were talking about solid body electric guitars. Now, I love Paul's guitars. I love Paul's playing. Have you guys heard the guy play?
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah.
And he's been good for a long time. He's a maker I respect a lot. You look at an electric guitar, and you look at the way a neck works, and you go, well, that's basically one leg of a tuning fork. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you were to hold a stick of wood, like firm against your kitchen table, and you pluck the end of that stick of wood with your other finger, does it or does it not make a sound? It does make a sound.
Yes.
If you make it so that that piece of wood doesn't stick out so far from the edge of the table and you pluck it, that pitch goes up because functionally it's now a stiffer thing. If you were to, maybe it was a rectangular piece of wood and you held it flat against the table and then you rotate it 90 degrees so the kind of the stiff edge is facing up and you pluck it, the pitch will be louder. Okay. There's a lot of things that are true for a guitar neck. Okay. So if you look at the influence of a neck wood, even a neck shape, like kind of dirty little secret, neck shapes do matter. They matter because they're comfortable and they determine how your hands fit around a neck, and that determines how you play. But the stiffness of a neck matters. The material used for a fretboard matters. The wood you use for the neck matters. How long is the neck? That matters. What's the arrangement and shape of the headstock? That matters. It all matters. But then in the real world, you ask, well, how much does it matter? Okay, well, that's a different question. Mm-hmm. Because there's other things that might matter a lot more, like how much coffee did you drink that morning? Are the strings new? What pick are you holding? How are you playing the guitar? Like, what are you doing with it? What's the rest of the picture look like? So yeah, on call it a theoretical side, everything matters. And on the practical side, yeah, it matters some, and it matters more in some designs and less in other designs. And in some contexts, you won't really hear much difference. And in other designs, it'll affect it. Mm. If you're kind of a connoisseur and you're used to, kind of geeking out over the subtleties of one versus another, yeah, you'll clue in on that. You might not be able to describe it. You might have a really hard time measuring it, but you can sense it. There's something there.
That's the best answer I've heard to this question thus far. I mean,
I agree.
I think you're totally right. I completely agree. And I think the part of this sort of debate is that I think, the non-Tonewood side of the debate, if you will, it's like people are so quick to just dismiss all of that. Like, oh, none of it matters. I can't hear a difference. I'm listening to this comparison on my phone, or I'm watching it on my laptop speakers or through a podcast or, whatever. It's like, well, this video says it doesn't make a difference. I can't hear a difference in the video. Therefore, it doesn't matter. None of this matters. Tonewood's all a marketing scheme. It's all a gimmick, and it's a way to just sell you on stuff. Don't buy into the hype kind of thing. It's like, okay, well, I think it's more of a personal thing. Either if it doesn't matter to you and you think it's all hype and everything, great. it doesn't matter. That's fine. But like you were saying, to certain people or to other people, it does matter. And guitar is a sum of its parts. It's
Right.
this like cumulative thing that all comes together to create the voice and the sound, which inspires the player to play a certain way, you know? So yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I think of it this way. What we get to listen to isn't really ever just the guitar, and it's not just a guitar player. What you're listening to is the relationship between the two, right? Like your hands don't sound like much until they've got an instrument to play, and that guitar, I think it was Chet Atkins that had a famous thing that somebody had told him, man, your guitar sounds great. And he points at it while it's sitting in the stand. He goes, well, what's it sound like right now? You know, but the point is it's the relationship between the player and the instrument. And so if something changes about the instrument that influences the way a musician handles it, the way that they hold their notes, the way they phrase it, the way they play, well, philosophically, did it matter? Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a short story about it. There was a singer-songwriter gal that she brought a guitar in that I needed to fix up. It had been around the world. I don't know how many times. It was like, it had lived a hard life, that guitar. And so I looked at it. Okay, well, I can put this back together and get you back out on the road with it. Cool. This is your favorite instrument. It's part of your muse. It's a thing for you. It had a big crack. It was an acoustic flat top guitar. It had a big crack in the top. And I go, okay, well, I think maybe that's one of the first things I'll fix. Mm-hmm. And there was a sticker, like a bumper sticker looking thing right over the top of it.
Oh no.
I go, okay, well, let me take that off. Let's fix this wood. I glue it all back together, cleat the inside, get it all patched up. Got the thing playing really good, sounded really good. It was like a great working instrument again. She came to pick it up and she played it, looked at it, and just went, oh, what did you do? Why did you take that sticker off? And at first I was kind of scratching my head like, well, it sounds a lot better now. It's louder. It's not so muffled. It's not buzzing because it's not broken, She goes, no. And then she goes on to tell me this whole story about where that sticker came from, the gig that she was at when she got it and put it on there. And it was a pivotal moment in her life as a songwriter and this whole thing. And then by the time she was done, I realized, holy smokes, you are absolutely right. I did you a disservice by removing that sticker because this guitar isn't serving you the same way that it was before. You don't sound like you when you play on this. Fortunately, I'd saved it, and so we were able to put it back on. But I was kind of dumbfounded for a minute. Went, wow, okay, the sticker made it better for you, huh? Who am I to argue with that?
That's a great way to look at it. It's because your instrument is a tool that you use for a job, and it's your thing. When you have your favorite guitar or through your favorite amp or whatever it is, like that is part of your voice, and it's an important relationship. So, yeah, man.
Oh yeah.
As someone who has done a lot of gigging with guitars and acoustic guitars, like us guitar players, we dive down these insanely deep rabbit holes, especially electric guitar players on things that are, everyone says, oh, you have to have this in your rig, pivotal pieces of equipment that you need for gigging. And seeing as, Taylor guitars have, built-in pickups, good preamp systems that have gotten even better over the past couple years. What do you think if someone says, hey, I'm trying to gig, I've got my guitar, it's got everything in it, but what could I add to this situation to improve my performance? Is there anything that comes to mind that you could recommend to players who are trying to gig more with their acoustic instruments?
Right. To me, it's a simple question, but it's a difficult one to answer because I need more context. Right. So you look at a person's electric rig. Like I I don't know how many different versions of pedal boards and amp rigs and all the stuff I've set up, torn down. And at this point, I don't really even have one go-to, because sometimes it's a gig that needs a pedal steel and an electric and a this and a that. And I go, well, I want to run through one rig, one amp setup. How do I blend them? Whatever it is. For acoustic guitars, what I tend to see is somebody will show up at a gig with their guitar case and maybe a cable, hopefully a good cable, and they'll plug their guitar into one end of the cable, and then they'll pick up the other end of the cable and go, could somebody take this from me? Could somebody plug this in somewhere and make it sound glorious? Right? So yeah. I tend to see that pretty often. We go, right, electric guitar players live in this world where they think of their whole signal chain pretty thoroughly. And acoustic guitar players are somewhere on this spectrum of either really sophisticated all the way down to not at all.
Yeah.
You know, some of the best acoustic sounds that I've ever heard start in front of a microphone. And even on stage, right? Some people, some stages, some sound people, some performers, their situation lends itself really well to that. I mean, one of the tricks with an acoustic guitar is that the sound of an acoustic guitar does not live on or in the guitar. It's in the airspace around the guitar. Right? And so any form of amplification device, any form of mechanical, kind of like a sound gathering gizmo that you could attach on or in the guitar, is inherently an incomplete version. Right? That's the fundamental problem with an acoustic guitar. With an electric guitar, you're focused a lot more on the way strings are moving. And you can influence the way a string moves by changing, let's say, neck wood or bridge or design or whatever it might be. But you've got a lot of focus on string motion and how that gets translated into a signal. For an acoustic guitar, you've got string motion, but you also have this mechanical amplifier that you're trying to capture. Okay, it's not much different than putting a mic in front of your guitar amp. Like you play an early Fender Deluxe with a pine, kind of a thin-walled pine cabinet. You're listening to the sides of that cabinet almost as much as you are that speaker. It's like that. That's a thing. Yeah. Right.
That's a huge thing. That's why I think a lot of electric players, just to not to interrupt you, but as an aside there, like a lot of electric players who are used to playing in the room in front of their amp, the first time they either hear their amp mic'd up or they go through some kind of like aux box or DI solution, they're like, well, this sounds terrible. This doesn't sound like my amp. It's like, yeah, because you're not used to hearing a microphone on a speaker. You're used to hearing the speaker in the cabinet and the room and the way it's all interacting together.
Right. And so that's the process that an acoustic guitar player goes through. It's go, well, when I play my guitar, it sounds like this, but on stage, it doesn't really sound much like my experience. Because, a lot of it's not captured. Yeah. You know, it would be like walking up to a painting on the wall. Let's say a couple of different options. Okay, go through them pretty easily. Let's say you're using piezo crystals. Okay, piezo crystal, it's actually a pretty interesting device. It's a molecule where you have an even number of electrons, and when it gets pressed under or compressed, you apply pressure to it. You shove more of the electrons over to one side than the other. There's a polarity. There's like a voltage differential there. Well, that is the definition of voltage. It's the difference between electrical charge, and so that difference in the altered amount of pressure is what can create a signal. You can gather this minuscule amount of electricity and use that variation in pressure to therefore create an electric signal. Okay, if you take a little tiny chip of that and put it right under a saddle, man, it's like looking at a painting from a giant painting on the wall from 6 inches away through the middle of a drinking straw.
Yeah.
Right? That's the picture of your acoustic guitar that you're going to see. You might get a part of it. You're going to get to focus on one aspect of it, but you're certainly not going to hear the whole thing. right?
I didn't realize we were going to get a physics lessons today. This is awesome.
I like it.
Sorry, the nerdy
cool.
factor is the nerd. It's pretty easy to go down those rabbit holes.
No, this is great. I love this.
Okay, but you look at that and go, well, you're going to get a tiny little picture. Okay, is it natural? Not really. Is it the complete picture? Not really. Does it work? Yeah, it works pretty good, actually. Does it create a musically useful sound on a stage? Yeah, in most cases it does. That's something that you can work with. Does it fit in a band setting? Mostly it does. And so what you're asking is not necessarily, how do I make it sound perfectly like the guitar that I'm playing, but how do I make a sound that fits in this musical context? Okay, so if you're open to that conversation, or once you arrive at that spot, that's when things start to work a lot better, because you can run through outboard gear. You see some pretty sophisticated acoustic players who are, they might plug into a pedal tuner that mutes. I mean, I don't know how many acoustic guitar players still plug into one of those white Boss TU-12. I've got one. I've got probably a dozen of them sitting in different under the workbench somewhere. And so you'll see somebody do something like that, but then they might run through a different preamp, maybe a parametric EQ that allows them some feedback suppression or control for a room. They might look at something with some signal boosting. They might look at a reverb or some compression. They're trying to create a signal to hand to a sound man, something that works in their context. Okay. That's where I love to see players end up. When they find what kind of stages they're playing on, what's the rig look like? How are you best going to make this instrument work? Certainly there's something to love about plug and play, and a great piece of gear. Man, oftentimes you can get there and sound perfectly appropriate for the context. I mean, I love going to a gig with like one of my archtop guitars and an old Tweed Deluxe or something. Going, I have a chord and I plug it into this and I plug it into that and I play and it sounds killer. A great piece of gear will allow you to do that, but it's not always the most appropriate sound for the context. So in different environments, man, you got to take into account, how are you using it? What's the stage setup like? What's the band setup like? Like if you're playing with you're playing an acoustic guitar in front of a 6-piece rock band on a big stage, that's one context. If you're playing a traditional sounding acoustic guitar around a microphone in a bluegrass band with some other acoustic instruments, different context. Yeah. You have different needs and a lot of different things. Singer-songwriter playing solo and accompanying your vocals, different context. A lot of it depends.
So I'm the type of player that generally hate the sound of a plugged up DI acoustic guitar. I just don't like it. And my way around it is to try and get as far away from that as possible. So in recent years, when I have had to play acoustic on a gig, a lot of times I'll just plug it into my electric amp and just it's like try and just get it away from trying to make it sound like an acoustic guitar and just making it some sort of different element altogether and adding some slapback and some reverb or maybe a little distortion here or there. But
right.
And that works to your point of context. The context that I often play acoustic in, it works for that. But let's say I want to get as an accurate response as possible from an acoustic guitar in a live setting. What have you found to be the best system? Is it a specific pickup? Is it a specific preamp or a combination therein? What do you think?
For me, I found that our ES2 pickup works really good for most players most of the time. Okay. Is that a fair way to say it? It's not all, it doesn't work great for all players all the time. It works really well for most players most of the time. So most contexts, that's pretty good. It has better dynamic range than a lot of acoustic pickups. It's more touch sensitive than a lot of acoustic guitar pickups. And so that works pretty well. I like to couple it with a parametric EQ.
Okay.
And listen to the system that I'm putting it through. If I can, There are times when a compressor is nice to go, well, how do I fit in this mix? So that can work pretty good. If you can blend it with a little bit, if it's a quiet stage, you can blend it with a microphone as well.
Mm-hmm.
That works really good because now you have some of the spatial sense around
Right.
that instrument. That's probably my favorite version. But again, it's context dependent.
I love your analogy of like, you really have opened my mind to the way I think about acoustic guitars being, specifically like amplifying acoustic guitars. You're only getting one small element of the whole voice of the guitar. It would almost be like in an electric context, you have your whole electric rig, your guitar, your pedal board, your amp, speaker cab, but you're just listening to like the signal coming off of the V1 preamp tube and just taking that and trying to make that the whole sound, right? Like that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. And so, that's huge, because I think there's a lot of players out there now, specifically maybe electric players that play acoustic live, like myself, that want it to sound more natural and more real, and just have been really frustrated with the options out there. So it sounds like you need to kind of take a few key pieces, put it together, and then listen to the guitar in the room and make changes accordingly.
Well, a lot of it, yeah, you're right. A lot of it to me is context. Okay, so if I were to look at the guitars that a player might have at a gig, you probably don't play the gig with just one instrument, right? You might have a Tele, you might have a Strat, you might have a Les Paul, you might have an SG, you might have a 335, maybe you have a PRS, and they all kind of have different flavors. If you're a fortunate player to have some different amp options, you might go, okay, well, that's my rock gig with this band. For that band, I like playing an AC30 with these three guitars, and on this song I use this pedal, and on this song I use that. You kind of have your go-tos of what's going to work for you for a context. But the rig that I would bring to, say, a jazz gig isn't the same as what I would bring to a country gig playing with like a honky-tonk band. And that's certainly not the same thing that I would take to like a bluegrass gig and play with that band, right? And so I look and go, well, you might have a choice of 2 or 3 different amps and maybe 3 or 4 different electric guitars and a choice of, I don't know, a half dozen pedals or something that you might swap out based on context. And then you're going to look at an acoustic guitar and go, well, this one acoustic guitar does all my acoustic sounds. Well, kind of, right. I guess you could sort of get there. I mean, everybody started with a first guitar, but they're different purposes. They're different things. Like if I'm playing fingerstyle on an acoustic guitar, I'm probably not going to pick up the same instrument or choose the same pickup or the same signal chain as if I was playing with a big, thick, flat pick and like laying into this thing on a rhythm part. Like I've got a different thing. I'm going to set all my output levels different. I'm going to EQ it differently. I'm going to compress it differently. It's got to fit a different purpose.
Is that something like the pedal realm? Because you guys, you made a lot of interesting products over the years, but I don't know if Taylor's ever done like any sort of preamp pedals or anything like that. Is that something you guys are ever thinking about doing? Or
I'd love to. There's all kinds of stuff that hasn't been done yet. I mean, if you look at guitar and think, well, this is still a ever evolving world. It's a young instrument. New musicians are coming up with new ways of doing things all the time. Years ago, we built something that we called a K4, which was a preamp. It was like a standalone preamp box, kind of an unusual shape. Wasn't really a piece of rack gear necessarily or a pedal, but it was something that we had developed in conjunction with Rupert Neve. Okay. It was basically like a channel strip out of a Neve console. Nice. Sounded really good. Great piece. We ended up stopping because that piece was designed around such specific components that when those components became not available, we went, don't redesign it. Don't bother. It's the sunset on that project.
Yeah.
We haven't really gone back there, partly because we can make what we have expertise in. And so when we look at the field of electronics like pedal creation, yeah, we don't really have that expertise right now. I know what I want to hear. And other people who do have expertise in that are making some really neat gear.
Yeah.
Go with that. That works really good. So yeah, maybe we would, but I don't want to make something just for the purpose of having a product in a category on the market. I want it to have a reason to exist, and it's got to serve a musician in some good, compelling way.
No, I really respect that, man. That's cool to hear from, you know, the leader of a company like Taylor. It's because I think a lot of times the business side of things lends itself to, well, we got to get into this market, so we need a thing that does this. There's just, let's get out there so we can be part of that. It sounds like you're saying like, no, if we can't do it really well, then we don't really want to do it. So that's cool.
Well, yeah. Then it's kind of just a waste, right? Yeah. It's a waste of effort. It's a waste of resources. It's a waste of materials. It's like, yeah, there's not a reason to do it yet.
Yeah. Ultimately, you have to make a product that speaks to you and something you would actually want to use. And yeah, it's the getting into that realm, because I mean, with everything that's going on with like pickup and microphone modeling for acoustic guitars, I can't remember the name of that unit that you can like model microphones and then plug your guitar into it, and then it sounds like your guitar play. It's the things
Aura,
that exist.
Fishman.
No, there's another, like a smaller company that makes this thing.
Are you thinking of the Bags voice print? I think.
Well, there was another one. I worked at Carter Vintage for a time.
Okay.
And it was a thing that came out that we would do it in the rooms with the guitar. We would take a mic in there and set it up and show these people doing it. But it wasn't like Bags or Fishman. It wasn't any of the big boys. It was a smaller company.
You can be honest. You were using a Kemper. Just
no. But it was like that. It was like modeling the microphone's response, and then it would listen to your onboard pickup system. You had to have something, and then it would just make it sound like that. And it was pretty crazy. And I think, you know, everything we're seeing with modeling is pretty remarkable, especially in the electric guitar world. But I assume that kind of thing is going to become more tangible for companies to start experimenting with. Yeah. But I mean, it's a whole different skill set that you have to have. And it's beyond me for sure.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can see that technology coming. And every time I think, well, yeah, here it comes, you know, you're going to take a deep dive into the world of something resembling AI and fast Fourier transform, real time model to alter this based on nothing but impulse response, or, you know, whatever the technology might be. Then I come back to the fact that a musician picks up an instrument and goes, this does something for me. I love it. I'm going to do something with it. Like I showed up at a gig not long ago and with an old friend, and he opens his case up. He pulls out this flat top guitar. I don't remember when we built it. It was a bit older. He's playing a flat top steel string guitar with flat wound strings on it. I go, really? What are you doing that for? That's kind of a weird mix. He goes, yeah, I tried it and I like it. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Well, sure. Let's go with that. You like it. That's good enough. You know, I mean, I've heard some great musicians play on resonator guitars, and they go, yeah, the way to make this really great, the way that I like it is I haven't changed the strings in 10 years. Mm-hmm. They're so dead and crusty. It just cleans the whole thing up, and I like it.
That's kind of how I am with acoustics. I want dead strings on my acoustics. I don't want an acoustic to be too bright and too articulate. I kind of want a warm, round, dead sound out of them, and it works for me.
Yeah. Have you played around with some of the different strings? If you look through D'Addario's catalog, they've got a lot of different options.
I've tried the half rounds recently. Matt Ike from Mule Resonators turned me on to those. because that's what he ships all his resonators with, are the half rounds. And I've tried putting those on acoustic, and that's a really cool sound too, because it blends that like bright, articulate, round wound steel string thing with sort of the flat wound sort of warmth and tubbiness, but it's still playable, and you get less string noise as well, which is nice for recording. So yeah, the half rounds are a cool move.
That's a cool one. Have you tried D'Addario's flat tops?
No.
That was I know they still make it, but I don't think I've ever seen them in a music shop. You kind of have to get them probably from them, but it's basically a round wound string, and the outside's been ground halfway away.
Nice.
So it's not really like a ribbon wound or, flat wound string. It's not quite a half round, but it has this really interesting sound. I love it on a dobro because it just sounds
the
so
red
clean.
stripe on the package, like it's the white with, because I think I might have those up there. I think that might be what I was talking about with the half rounds.
It could be.
Yeah,
they call them flat tops.
That might be what I'm looking at right up there. I can't read it from here, but yeah, that's
cool.
I think that's what Mule ships all his resonators with, for that same reason. Because especially when you're playing slide too, it's smoother, but you get less string noise. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I
flavor.
found that pedal.
I mean, there's a lot of different things.
Oh, you found a pedal?
Yeah, it's called the Audio Sprocket Tone Dexter.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's an interesting name, but yeah, that's the thing that like models mics and stuff.
Cool. Want to dip a rig here?
Sure.
So we got an electric guitar rig here. This is from Mr. Mike Stearns.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay,
so he's
nice.
got a parts caster telly. Pretty straightforward. This is an old late 80s Greco SG. And
Nice.
he's got an orange Aura 15, a little 2x12 cab. And then the pedal board, he's got one of my fuzzes. He's got a Dry Bell Unit 67. I think, is that like a preamp from like an Echoplex or something?
I think so. Yeah.
Boss tuner. He said that's old enough to vote, which is great. A Catalan bred Bella Epoch Echoplex delay, the Walrus ARP delay, a Flint, and a Strymon Deco. And he said this is like his do everything, grab and go guitar rig. And I like it. The only thing, and let me see if I can zoom in here. Oh yeah. There's a lot of, one of the bad things about pedal boards and Velcro, there's a lot of hair.
Yeah.
that happens.
Yeah.
But that's normal.
Mike to the wonders of Dual Lock, my friend.
Dual Lock or one of those like cap brushes,
Yeah, but will that get out of Velcro? Like the loop
man,
side
they're
of
great.
Velcro? Oh,
Yeah. Well,
okay. Okay, so guitar wise, so parts caster telly, pretty straight ahead, but I do like that he put the left-handed neck on the right-handed guitar. That's a nice touch. You don't see that a lot on tellies. That's cool.
No, you don't.
Is there anything, Andy, like guitar builder wise, that you would say? Because does that affect like the string tension at all on the lower strings?
Not so much the tension, but that's a Fender style headstock. So you don't have the angle back. You've got a step back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can see the picture's pretty small, but it looks like there's two string trees. They're pretty close to the nut, which is cool. You've got a lot of contact points. The length of string behind the nut before you hit the tuning post matters. Mm-hmm. And so on a lot of guitars, especially a Fender style guitar, you got to pay attention to that because you might not get the backset angle you want against the nut. You might have a little too much duplex scaling resonance. That's like when the string behind the nut is vibrating. Okay, that affects the
say
notes
that again.
you're
What
playing.
was that called? Duplex.
Piano tuner or piano designer will call it duplex scaling. Okay, so what happens is when you have a string, call it the active or speaking length, and it's held between 2 points, immediately on either side of that, the resonance isn't perfectly stopped at that point. You have to go around multiple bends. That's why if you look at the pins, like the hitch pins on the end of a piano string, you've got a series of them, and they have to make multiple bends to get around. Okay, and then on that non-active, like the non-playing part, piano guys call it the non-speaking length or the passive length. They wind felt through it,
right,
to dampen out any of that from affecting what you're listening to. That effect exists on a guitar headstock, big time. And so you got to pay attention to that. A Fender style headstock where it's not angled back, but has a really long length of string and not much angle, that's a pretty strong contender for having some issues there that are undesirable.
right.
Having 2 string trees can help that because you're sort of shortening that up a bit.
Wow.
You put the scrunchies up
That's
there,
pretty
right?
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like you kind of do the old school thing where you tie a do-rag around the headstock. You know, that actually works pretty good. Like you see some archtop guitar players do it on between the tailpiece and the bridge.
right.
Okay, that section matters. You know, so mandolin players will put little mutes there because proportionately that length of string is super long compared to the active speaking length. So you got to mute that. Some people love the sound of it ringing. Some people don't. Kind of makes like a reverby sort of a sound.
Yeah.
Yeah. My Novo Ceres J, which has a Jazzmaster bridge on it. The having that, it's the same thing just on the other side, and it rings like a bell. I kind of like it. I think it sort of adds to the character of the guitar. But a friend of ours, Kevin Kadish, has one, and he took little rubber grommets and just stuck it between each pair of strings on the backside to dampen that down.
That'll help. 12-string guitars. 12-string guitars can do it. I mean, you got that really long headstock, and you've got a bunch of high-pitched strings that are the notes you play are starting to get into the same resonance range as the notes that you would hear when those open spans are vibrating. And so they can destroy each other or make weird tuning things happen.
Wow.
There's a lot of interference that can happen there.
Man, this has been an education today. I'm here for it. This is great.
I like it.
Greco SG, pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen a Greco on the show before.
No, that looks like that's probably like, lawsuit. Although lawsuit era gets, that term gets thrown around a lot, but it's set neck. The font looks like Gibson. It doesn't have the flower pot, but yeah, that's a cool guitar. SG,
Yeah,
classic.
cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Make sure you use a right angle plug on your cord so you don't break the front of it open.
You see those little tears right there.
Oh gosh, man, I don't know how many of those I've fixed. You see somebody with a straight plug going into the front of an SG, one big, windmill style strum, it literally breaks the whole front of the control cavity out in some of them. Make sure you do yourself a favor. It's public service announcement. Use a right angle plug on a guitar like that.
Same thing with 335s.
Yeah, 335's a plywood top, so it's not going to crack as easily as an SG. An SG is usually a mahogany body, and you cut because it's so thin, you cut the control cavity down so there's just a tiny little bit of wood left in front of that thing. And so it's a really fracture prone spot. Man, they break really easy.
Yeah, I've seen a lot with the toggle switch nuts on there or just big metal washers or something down there. It's funny.
Yeah, big armored, like a big fender washer. It's like the extra large diameter one with a little hole. Yeah. Little armor plating so it doesn't break, or because it already broke and you didn't want to fix it.
Yeah. Put a little skid plate down there.
Yeah, totally.
So pedal board wise, I mean, pretty straight ahead, but really good choices made here. The Golden Fleece, that's a strong choice. I've not played the Unit 67 before, but here's what I like. The combination of the belt epoch, so you got the Echoplex style tape echo, the Flint, which I still believe is one of the greatest of all time Hall of Fame pedals ever made. And then the Deco, which anytime there's a Deco on a board, you get bonus points from me. One of the most underrated, misunderstood, yet greatest pedals of all time. That's a strong board right there.
Yeah, and he's using the orange for a lot of the breakup, which is cool. I don't know I don't know if he's using like an effects loop, but I don't know if you have your amp cooking a little bit, you can run all that stuff into the front. Who cares? It's rock and roll, man.
It's rock and roll. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah,
I really like that Echoplex pedal. Actually,
yeah, they're great.
I have a deep seated love for the original Watkins copycat, old Roland Space Echoes, the Echoplex. I can't run with one at a gig. They're just, I want to love it so much. I want to love it when it's working perfectly in like a studio environment. Oh my gosh, it feels so good. They're so cool.
Yep.
It just doesn't really always work that good. It's kind of like the memory is better than the reality.
Right.
Yeah.
But that Echoplex pedal is a pretty strong one for me. I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's a great one. And then the amp, the orange, or I've not played the OR15. Big fan of that. And I like the fact that he's getting most of his gain from the amp, because that's what you want. You know, when your overdrive pedal or whatever generally is trying to sound like an amp breaking up anyway. So why not just have the amp break up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Use your volume knob.
I can dig that.
So, all right. Only thing I would change here, I would switch the Velcro over to dual lock. And I feel like we could format the board a little bit better. You know, we could maybe even make it a little smaller, you know, make it easier to transport to and from gigs. But otherwise, man, I really like this rig. You know, you got the single coils, you got the humbuckers, you got a good amp, you got a really good pedal selection. I'm going to give this 9.5 Schloils here.
Oh my gosh.
It's a high rating.
Wow.
So Andy, out of 10, what would you throw up at this rig?
I want to know what hardware's on the guitar. Which parts? Okay, it's a parts caster and it's a Greco SG, but what parts?
Oh yeah.
Because like on that Greco, if you've got like a cast bridge and tailpiece, oh man, that's just not doing it for me.
You need that lightweight aluminum.
Either lightweight aluminum, that would be kind of cool, or just nicely made parts.
Yeah,
you know, you gotta keep it good. There's something, I don't know if it's just a shadow in the picture, but there's something going on with the pull pieces in that bridge pickup.
Yeah, I see.
I can see that you got the neck pickup turned around the opposite direction. So something's been played with there. I'd love to know what those pickups are.
Yeah,
what version you're running, how they're going.
I don't. D&G left-hand PAF in the bridge. I don't know.
Oh.
And then a Gibson 57 in the neck.
Okay, then turned around.
Yeah, he said he rewired it.
Thing.
Yeah, well, just turned around. Who knows if he flipped the magnet? CTS pots rewired all with good stuff.
Cool.
But yeah, it doesn't say anything about the hardware. And then the telly has bare knuckles, but again, that looks.
Oh, those are good parts. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know about the bridge. I think he said it's a Squire body, so it may be Squire bridge hardware. Because with the 6 saddle thing, that oftentimes you can't just swap that because it's kind of its own. Like the screw placement for a 3-barrel telly bridge.
The sizes are different between Squire and American.
Right. Yeah. I bet you I could. I mean, a couple of those units I haven't played personally because I don't think I've ever owned an orange amp. I've played through a few of them. I'd have to run it to really feel it, but it looks pretty solid. Looks like you're going to get through a lot of electric guitar gigs with it.
Yeah,
probably an 8 out of 10. But you're going to get there.
That's what I was thinking. He's got one more spot for a pedal right there. Let's throw something there. Put something there. You put something else right there. And
maybe something weird. Maybe we per last week's episode, maybe we go a little out there. You know, you got all your bases covered, so why not experiment?
Get you a little harmonizer or something there. I don't know, something weird.
Yeah. You know, one thing that I would love to see in that rig. Did you guys ever play one of the old matchless hot boxes?
Oh yeah.
Oh gosh, I love that thing. I wish that was a more available thing. That was a really neat piece to put into a pedal board.
Yeah,
I mean it's kind of odd because I don't know, probably
they're not
all
cheap.
the money.
I was going to say, jump on them now because
it was just a really neat sounding piece of gear. You could put it in front of all kinds of stuff. I mean, there were times that even if you were going to go direct or let's say you're backlining an amp and you don't know what you're going to get, you could run through one of those and get a bunch of really great sound. It's like a great Swiss Army knife thing to go like, well, if I'm not going to take an amp on a plane, I could take this thing and whatever the backline amp is sounding like, I could probably sound pretty good.
Yep.
By having this.
Good news is there's one on eBay currently for $920. So
that's not bad.
Not bad. Not
It's
cheap.
not that bad. Not cheap.
Not
cheap.
Might be worth it.
Yeah, man.
Might be worth it.
Those are cool.
I mean, it's a kind of an odd one because it's got its own power supply and all that.
Yeah.
But it was basically like a mini amp that you could shrink down and put onto a pedal board, even though it took up half of your real estate.
Yeah, they're huge.
Yeah,
I like that.
I recently got turned on and purchased one of the old Hot Chili tubesters, same kind of thing. You know, it was basically a tube preamp with a power supply and everything in one box. Considerably less expensive than that matchless, but it's cool, man. And it's got dual outputs as well with individual volume control, so you can kind of do some interesting signal routing with it too. So, man, yeah, maybe the big tube preamp in a box thing should make a comeback. More companies should step into that, I think. With the power supply. I think the built-in power supply is a move.
Yeah.
So.
That's an investment.
Yeah.
By the time you put a transformer in there, that's an investment.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Andy, thanks so much, man. This was a amazing conversation, really informative and educational. And it's great getting to talk to you and kind of see where things are headed over at Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, so that was an amazing discussion. Genuinely, I think that is the best analogy for Tonewood I've ever heard anyone say. It was amazing.
Who's done that? I mean, not him.
No, him. He did it just now. He did it, and then also like the way he describes an acoustic guitar. I've never thought of it that way, which is like the sound is what the sound of the acoustic guitar is what's happening around the guitar, not necessarily what's happening in or on the guitar. Unbelievably cool. That's a great way to think about it. And it really reshapes my way of thinking about like specifically not just miking an acoustic guitar, but getting a good DI sound out of an acoustic. That's really cool. Yeah.
It's definitely, it's like he said, it's not this simple thing that you can just like throw a cable in a DI box and, boom, you're ready to go. It's a complicated thing, especially if your only frame of reference is sitting on a stool in a room listening to your guitar by itself. It takes a lot of work to get something to sound even remotely like that in a live situation. But yeah, what an insightful, like well thought out, a lot of analogies that really made sense, and hopefully will shed a lot of light on things for people.
Yeah, and it's cool that such a big company like Taylor is being run by people who are clearly incredibly knowledgeable about the instrument, but also just love the instrument. Like you can tell just listening to him talk, like this dude loves guitar and everything about it, building them, playing them, figuring out where the instrument's going. I mean, that's really encouraging to see such a huge company in the marketplace being led by someone like that. I think that's genuinely cool. So
yeah. And if you haven't seen Andy play, like if you just go to YouTube and just type in Andy Powers playing guitar, the guy can rip. So like,
nice.
That's always to me like the most encouraging thing. Like it's something so awesome to hear someone's great opinions and thoughts and insight, but then to see them actually put it into practice and show that they can prove everything they're saying. That's the icing on the cake. And cool 100%. Cool guy. We want to thank again our Patreons. Thank you guys. If you want to learn more about supporting the show, that's one of the best ways to do it. Go to the link below and check out the Patreon, check out the tiers, check out the things that you can get from us. And you have more immediate access to pester us, which is always fun.
It's what we live for. It's why we're on the internet. Like we said, access to Q&A, Patreon only Q&A, access to our Discord, early access to episodes, all that stuff is linked down below, and you are directly supporting the show. So if you dig Dipped in Tone, join us on Patreon. Also subscribe, like we talked about. And if you're listening to us on a podcasting platform, leave us a review and a rating, because that also helps new people find the show. So thank you.
Absolutely. And thanks to StewMac for sponsoring this episode. Again, go to stewmac.com/dippedintone. Get 10% off your order. Get those fretboard conditioners. Get your stuff for getting those frets in order. Get your setup tools, your Allen keys.
I'd like to offer an official statement of apology. Producer Jason corrected me that technically, if it's fretted, it is a fretboard, and if it's not fretted, it's a fingerboard. So I apologize. I sincerely regret my misstatement, and I am constantly working and growing and trying to become a better person, a more understanding person. And this is me on my journey to doing so. So go clean your fretboards, not your fingerboards. But if you're playing a fretless instrument like a violin or viola, you can go clean your fingerboards as well. And StuMac has
or
what
bass.
you need to do, or bass. Yeah, you're doing Jocko lines. It's cool. Whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, StuMac.com. Links in the description. Thanks for sponsoring today's episode. And now it's time to shill. What are we shilling?
Do you have a physical shill? I mean,
I've got a
mine
physical
is physical,
shill.
but you show yours first.
All right. So mine is a pedal. It is the new Max from Universal Audio. This is a preamp and dual compressor. Now, let me tell you why I think this is cool. If you've been following me online for a while, you know I'm not a huge fan of like always on compression for guitar players, especially if you're using some kind of overdrive or an overdriven amp. I think always on compression is a crutch for a lot of players, unless it's a specific sound, like it's a specific thing you're going for, a la Corey Wong or a player like that. But compression is a really useful and valuable tool for guitar players for a multitude of reasons. What's cool about this is it's one of the only, actually, I think this is the only compressor pedal I've seen that is an 1176 and an LA2A. If you don't know what those are two classic compressors, outboard hardware recording compressors, really great circuits. They're in studios all over the world, and there's two of them. So why do you want two of them in series? Well, this is coming again from the studio and recording world. A lot of times for things like vocals or drums or anything that requires compression, you'll actually run two compressors. There's a lot of different things you can do that create great big beautiful sounds utilizing these tools. And it's cool that they've put two in here. So you can go 1176 into LA2A or the other way around or whatever. The other cool thing is there is a preamp here based off of the UA 610 preamp, really famous mic pre. So this is a really powerful tool, not just for guitar, but because it's also stereo in and out. If you're interested in getting into mixing and maybe using some outboard gear like a pedal for mixing, this is a really, really cool pedal, and it sounds great. Now, they did give this to me. I didn't pay for it, but they're not sponsoring the show or anything like that. I just genuinely really dig it. So there you go.
I like the look of it. I like the blue with the red knob and the silver box and the gray knobs.
Yeah, they really nailed the aesthetic of this one for sure.
Their pedals just like, man, they look expensive, and I like it. Yeah, they're nice. But I think that's a cool thing. So my shill, I actually texted it to you, and it's just the okay, pull it up. It's my photo with Adam. So we'll throw it on the screen now.
Wow.
And we did have to, I did have to pay for that, because it's like he's not doing this stuff for free.
Man's got to make a living. Lives in San Francisco, for Christ's sake.
And that was super cool. So it lined up, and it was funny. Like there's all these like celebrities, like voice actors, and all these people there. And like the line for Adam was insane. It was insane. And it was just hey, how's it going? Take a picture. All right, bye. Like that's all it was. But I want to frame it and hang it in my office.
Yeah, it's a great picture. It genuinely is a great picture. And also, it's a nice watch you got on there, Zach.
Oh, shoot.
Spicy watch.
Uh-oh.
Spicy watch.
Spicy watch. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Remember to like, subscribe, do all the things. And I guess that's it.
We'll see y'all.